Hey everybody, welcome to the fifth episode of Behind the Loo. Obviously we don't have Adam today because this was a episode we were not expecting to make at all. I was at work and I got the news that Vladimir Tarasenko was traded to the New York Rangers, and it was kind of a shock. I mean, we knew this was coming, but we didn't know. It just when it happened, it's just something that you were not really expecting at all, just because I mean, he's been the face of this franchise for so long. So we wanted to come on here and talk about everything that happened and what the trade means for the Blues moving forward and and how we just feel about the trade overall. So, Sean, what was your reaction when you found out that he was traded to the Rangers?
The reaction that I had is it legitimately hurt my heart.
Yeah.
And the worst thing, or I shouldn't say the worst thing, it was a deal that we all knew was going to be made, but I think all of us didn't want it to. At the end of the day, if you look at it from the business standpoint, you're trading a player who wasn't going to resign, and you get a lot of capital back. And that's the biggest thing. It's the same deal with a Paul Stastny situation that we had happen. Same situation with Kevin Shattenkirk, too. We knew these guys were not going to resign, so we traded them. And the haul that we got is a decent one. It's not bad, but off initial value, the wind of a trade always goes to the person who got the best player, and the New York Rangers get that in Vladimir Tarasenko at 50% retained, so they're only going to have to pay him 3.75 million for the rest of this year. They also get Nico Mikkola.
That was a shock to me. I was not expecting him to be part of that deal. I wasn't surprised that he was traded, but I was just surprised that he was a part of this deal. But I think throwing him in there made it to where the first round pick was going to be an option.
I think no. Well, what's interesting is I could have seen Nico Mikkola being at least a second to third round pick if you were to trade him to a team that really needed defense, like Edmonton. That was a trade
Yeah.
rumor that went around a lot, or that everyone thought made a lot of sense, and it made sense to me too. But yeah, no, Nico Mikkola goes there. He makes 1.9 million, which is a bit of a overpayment of what he will get later on in the summer because he's also a free agent after this year. But in return, we get my personal favorite player in Sammy Blaze, and here's why. Sammy
That was
Blaze is
so
my
funny too.
he is one of my favorite players because I saw him in his first training camp. He is a seventh round pick that blossomed very well with the Blues, and I remember seeing him at preseason games and just like, and I this is a personal in depth with me, is I had the personal thought, or the thought that maybe one day I could be an NHL scout. It was one of my dream jobs, as you
Mm-hmm.
have growing up, and I hyper focused on Sammy Blais and his career and coming up and whatnot. But he comes back to St. Louis after not having a successful year at full year. Well, I think it was a year or two of being in New York. I think he only played like under maybe 30 or 40 games.
Mm-hmm.
You get a prospect in Hunter Skinner, who was a fourth round pick in 2019. He's a right-handed defenseman, 6'1" or 6'2", I think, and he's currently playing in the ECHL, which is the minor league for the AHL. So like it's third level down hockey. Um, he is someone that, like, there's already been a prospecting report on him to where they say that he's not a great skater and they're unsure if he would make it into the NHL, but it depends on his development. I don't think New York is over the moon good at developing players because I look at their first overall and second overall picks in Alexis Lafreniere and Capo Caco. Those are two players that have not really blossomed yet, and they're still holding out hope, but give them 2 or 3 more years, and if they're still at that level, it's going to be a huge miss on their drafting and scouting. You also get a first round pick, which is conditional. The reason why it's conditional is because New York has two first round picks going into this year's draft, and they have their own. And they also have the Dallas Stars, which they obtained by trading one of their I shouldn't say star, one of their higher touted defensemen in Niles Lundqvist. And you also get a conditional fourth round pick next year, which automatically, in my mind, turns into a third round pick because the condition is if the Rangers make the playoffs this year, which is it's pretty guaranteed.
I thought the
So
fourth pick was 2023. too. I thought like both picks were for 2023.
I thought so too, but it looks like it's for next year.
Gotcha. I mean, so looking at the trade overall, I think I'm very for what you're going to get for Tarasenko and his contract year as a rental piece. I mean, I think you got a pretty good return. Yeah, you gave up Mikula in that deal, but I think they were I don't think they were going to re-sign him either this year. And then you have guys like Tyler Tucker that I feel like could fill that role. And it's probably more physical as a defenseman than Mikula is.
Nico, his role got diminished because of Callie Rosen and Tyler Tucker coming up. Not to
Yeah.
mention you're still paying Marco Scandella for this year and next year, and you have Scott Prunovich still in your system, even though injury. I knew one defenseman was going to be moved, no matter what, like one of those lower ends, that not the top four, but no. If you look at it, you can also look at it this way, because I know a lot of Blues fans are going to like really beat themselves up and thinking, "Damn, Doug Armstrong's terrible at this. He's like no trades." Because I was listening to the radio on the way in, and everyone's making this thought of like he doesn't know what he's doing. He hasn't made a good trade since the Cup run. I'm like, guys, if you really want to feel good about it, think of it this way: you traded Vladimir Tarasenko for a first and Sammy Blais, a roster player back.
Yeah, and
You then traded Nico Mikkola for basically a third round pick and a prospect.
yeah. And even then, like, let's say like you're not getting like a player that's going to make an impact for you right away because obviously you just got the draft picks mainly and you got the one prospect. But I mean, if you think about it this way, if you make another trade, like let's say you trade O'Reilly and let's say you, like if you package it somehow or someone is willing to give you a first round pick for O'Reilly, then you have 2 first round picks that you can end up trading after you draft them and then get that big player that you need. And I think that's the one thing I really like about this trade is because it gives you more options for the future and makes it more of a faster rebuild. Because when going into this next second half of the season after the All-Star break, I was just more worried about them not like Doug trying to compete too much and not doing what needed to be done. And that was ripping the Band-Aid off with these guys.
Here's my problem with that: is it's still not a rebuild. That's it. Like it's just one.
It's like a
bad year.
retool, but
Yeah, that's
I
a
mean,
better way of looking at it. I wish everyone would just get away from the idea of rebuild because I don't want to go through what Anaheim's going through. I don't want to go through what Chicago's going through. I don't want to go through what the Coyotes have gone through for like 20 plus years. I don't want to deal with that.
But do you think that maybe it might be like a retool? Do you think a rebuild might be needed just due to the fact that how much money's been tied up, especially
No.
like with you don't think so?
I'm going to tell you that
I,
right now. You don't give if you think you're in the mode of rebuilding, you don't give those contracts out to Thomas and Kyrou.
I mean, yeah, but I'm just saying, do you think they're handling it the right way, or do you think they should have gone through like the whole rebuild
This is the best.
process?
No, this is the best way to go about it to where you still stay competitive year in and year out, and you still have a chance at getting a top pick. You gave yourself 2 swings in the first round. No matter, like, look, at the end of the day, that first round pick is going to be in the 20 to 33 range.
Yeah,
Because New York does have a chance to win the Cup, and Dallas is leading our division, and they do have a chance to win the Cup. What's really weird about this is how much everyone is making it out like a fleece from the New York Rangers. It is nowhere near that. Because here's why. And I wanted to bring this up as a big point. We traded Sammy Blais to New York with a second round pick for Pavel Buchnevich and signed Pavel. And that was back in July of 23rd, 2021. Sammy Blais is now back with the Blues. So, okay. Rangers got a second round pick out of someone that they could not re-sign. That second round pick they used to get a total of, because I want to make sure to say this, 16 games out of Andrew Kopp, because they traded that pick to Winnipeg to get Andrew Kopp. And that got you a total of 16 games, 18 points, which is really, really good. You then went on, I think, to play 20 games in the playoffs where he had 14 points, but you didn't re-sign him. And I would say that Andrew Kopp is a better defensive player than Tarasenko. That's something you could have had. He had great chemistry with your team. How come you didn't re-sign him? And this, like, they basically get Pavel Buchnevich for Tarasenko too. If you want to add that to make yourself feel better, replace Sammy Blais' name with Pavel Buchnevich.
yeah. It's just really interesting just because like it's just nice to know that kind of like the direction they're trying to go in. And I thought Doug's comments about like when he did the press conference today about um the trade and just what future moves might look like. And he was asked about O'Reilly, and he said that because O'Reilly's obviously publicly came out and said that he wants to stay a Blue and he wants to be here, like he wants to be extended. He wants to sign an extension here. And Doug's response to that was O'Reilly knows how I feel about him, and about that conversation happened behind closed doors, so we're just gonna keep it that way. So, to me, I don't know how to really react to that. Do you
Like
think
it,
he's pretty much good as gone? Because I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't trade him if you have an opportunity to get a decent package back, even if you have to bundle somebody else in it. I think you try to get as many first round picks as you can. And I mean, does that also mean that Barbashev might be gone too?
I think
I mean,
Barbashev could get you another first round pick, which is really
yeah.
interesting to think about because you think about how much teams need to overpay for other players. So like if I let me look up who's in the standings real quick because I'll tell you the top teams that are willing to sell their first round pick just to get someone like Ivan Barbashev. Like, because teams will panic. Like Boston, that is a great example of someone who would sell their first round pick to get him.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that, and let's say Boston and New York meet in the finals or like meet in the Eastern Conference Finals, and you have both their picks, you can package that to at least get a middle in the first round, which is even better because like there's so much to build off of. Like
Mm-hmm.
Boston has a chance. I could see Toronto making a run to try and get Ivan Barbashev. However, they just started saying that they're not going to sell their first. Carolina, they need more depth as always. New Jersey, they're going to need more depth. Washington, they're going to want to always be competitive. Pittsburgh, they're always going to want to be competitive. It's there's a lot of teams that would want him. And then you go
Yeah.
out to the West. You look at the top teams there. You got, of course, Colorado, Winnipeg, and Dallas within our division. Colorado could want Ivan Barbashev. They know what they're getting because they've played against him a bunch of times. Vegas would want him because that's an extra depth piece, and the cap doesn't matter to them because they just always go over it.
Yeah. Overall, you could get a lot for Barbashev just because the market is really high for players like him. And, but like, kind of just to go back to the O'Reilly thing, I mean, does he have any value to a team? I mean, he's like, yeah, he's had a down year this year and he's dealt with injuries this year. But overall, you know, you're going to get a guy who is a captain. He's your captain. He's the captain of the Blues. He led them to a Stanley Cup. He shines in postseason. He's a leader and he's well respected around the league. Do you think that do you think you would be able to get a good return for him, or do you think that you should just try to extend him
This has set the
and have
market.
him lead the car, like lead the future with like Thomas and Kyrou and all the other guys?
This sets the market for a lot of teams. The past two trades in Bo Horvat and now Tarasenko, where both teams gave up a first round pick.
Yeah.
You trade O'Reilly, you're guaranteed a first round pick now. If you trade for Thomas Hurdle, you're guaranteed a first round pick now. If you trade for Patrick Kane or Jonathan Toews, you're guaranteed to give up a first round pick.
Yeah.
However, Patrick Kane, I don't think will ever be traded now because that was another rumor that came around with it is that the Rangers would have traded for Patrick Kane, but they did not feel comfortable with his hip injuries and how
Yeah.
bad he's been this year. And that has to be a huge blow for Chicago. So that means they're letting their legends walk away in free agency and not going to
Yeah.
get anything out of
It
it.
hurts their rebuild like
Yeah.
drastically to not get those first round picks. But I mean, like, I just, the thing is like, the question is going forward is where, like, how do you try to build this team to compete next year? Because I feel like that's what they're trying to do. They want to make it to where they're like, this was just an off year and they're just trying to retool quickly to get them back to maybe where they were, at least closer to where they were in the 2021 to 2022 season. So
Yeah, and here's my answer with that is the fact that Colton Parayko will get better. There's no way
no,
that
he
he can be
won't.
this bad. There's
No,
no
he
way he
won't.
can be this bad
Sean,
because he has
we've been
been
asking
that
for him
better
to do
player.
so much for that long. We've
No,
been
you've been
asking for him to
asked.
do.
You've asked him to do so much after you left. You let Petrangelo walk after your another star defenseman and Jay Bomeister practically has a heart attack. He has played with great players, but has never been able to let himself shine. And for the first time out of like these past 2 years, even last year, he wasn't terrible. This is his first bad year. You cannot make any argument to me, and he can still be a great defenseman. He is the perfect either number 3 or number 4. The argument that you still need a number 1 defenseman, I am not going to pay $9 million plus for a number 1 defenseman.
You know how many people are going to disagree with you for that comment right there?
A lot of people are going
to disagree.
But listen to me to this. Guess what? Guess what the same core did for you last year? They took you up against Colorado and forced a game 6 and almost got you to a game 7. Yeah. It's the same core that got you.
But who blew? Whose fault was it on that last goal in overtime in Game 6?
Nico Mikkola was on the ice.
It was. I thought it was Parayko.
It was Nico Mikkola.
My memory was bad. For some reason I thought it was Parayko. Man, that's funny.
It is overblown how much of a whipping boy Parayko has become.
I mean, there's always going to be the whipping boy on the team. Yeah, on any team in professional sports, but he's overpaid, and I think that's why.
He's not overpaid.
He is overpaid.
You can see so many other defensemen that get overpaid, and I can tell you them right now. The fact that San Jose, now, this is what, just to put in perspective, this is what a number 1 defenseman makes money-wise. Erik Karlsson, $11.5 million at 32 for the next 6 years, okay? Another person that gets paid way too much money is even Alex Pietrangelo. That contract, I totally agree on why Doug doesn't sign it. He is going to be making $8.8 million until he is 37.
Oh my God, we have to watch Parayko till 2030? Oh my God.
Dude, there's so many other worse stuff, worse defensemen.
People have always given him
so much more money.
People have given Doug criticism for that extension and just not extending the right players. And do you think that
okay.
Do you think that extension was worth?
Let's follow the breadcrumbs with this. Then we don't sign Alex Pietrangelo, but sign Torrey Krug. Everyone points at that. That's the moment the defense died. That's the moment we jumped the shark. Sell the team. Everything's gone wrong. No, we gave the offer of $9.5 million to Alex Pietrangelo for 8 years. The only condition on why it didn't work out is because we were not going to have that no movement clause, no trade clause on him. We want that flexibility to trade him. If he goes tits over after 4 to 5 years, I want to be able to move that contract. Okay? You then signed a safety net, Torrey Krug. And even before then, you signed the safety net of Justin Falk too. That is the 2 best East defensemen that for the past 5 years in Boston and in Carolina. And if you sign Alex Pietrangelo for 9.5, do you have enough money to sign Thomas and Kyrou? Did you make enough space? Or are you going to keep paying, let's say, even David Perron? It doesn't make any sense to me. There is a progression that you have to follow. The progression didn't meet the standards that we wanted this year. And we just have to face it. Is that on Doug? No. He knows the players that he drafted. He has the expectations for them because he knows how to build a team. You know why we know that? Because over the last 8 years before 2019, he brought in talent like Patrick Berglund, TJ Oshie, Ian Cole. David Perron is his own draft pick. He signed the guy 3 different times. That's how much faith he puts in the guy. He brought in Jake Allen. He brought in Colton Parayko. He made a trade for Jay Bouwmeester and got everything he wanted out of it. And Calgary got nothing. He traded Brian Elliott to get the 2nd round pick. You know who that 2nd round pick was from Calgary? Jordan Kyrou. So I think he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but it's just
freaking idiot. Dude, there was this idiot on ESPN on my way home today to go to this podcast. It's like, oh, I don't know. We sure Doug's running this team, or is it Mo? I don't know what direction. We're just trading.
Okay. Well, you know what's funny is Mo has not done that bad. If we're going to switch to like a Cardinals perspective, because this has been talked about a lot, and this would be an interesting episode, future Doug versus Mo. But I mean, Mo has made bad moves, yes, but I think every GM has, and president of baseball operations and GM of hockey or whatever they called their president.
It's just GM. We have a general manager. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, but to compare this to Mo, I think is just dumb because I mean, one, I don't think the move that I don't think the Tarasenko move was a problem. I mean, you're getting a first round pick for this year's draft for a guy who just came off an injury and has been having shoulder problems, and there's just a you don't really know what you're
He's
going to
coming
get
off
with
two
him going
major shoulder
forward.
surgery. Yeah, he's coming off two major shoulder surgeries and either a broken or sprained hand.
Yeah, I don't know.
And he wasn't going to resign. That's the biggest thing that everyone needs to take away. He wasn't coming back.
What is going on in my Spotify right now? Hey, no, my whole computer just messed up because someone called me on my phone while my headset's connected. Sorry about that. They disconnected me from you. I didn't hear anything that you were saying.
Oh, it's all good.
But
That's just my honest opinion with it all. And then you have the money going forward next year too to give more to O'Reilly or Barbashev or even Blay too. Here's
yeah,
another thing that a lot of people forget too is Sammy Blay was on a line with Ryan O'Reilly before too.
yeah, yeah. I don't. It's just so going forward. What do you think? Who do you think will get traded next? Because obviously, I think we can both agree. The next for sure pick is probably Barbashev, just because of what you're probably going to get the return for. It's probably worth it to move him.
I would say Nola Chari. That's another possible
Really?
snag that someone could want. Yeah. For
I mean, yeah,
1.25 million, if you give
he's
me a second round pick for Nola Chari, I'd take that.
yeah. What do you think they keep if they trade Achari? Do you think they keep Barbashev then?
Probably, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that makes sense. Barbashev is the younger of the two.
yeah. And then what about O'Reilly? Does he stay or go?
And the way it's talking up, I guess he stays and they'll re-sign him. I mean, I don't see
I
why they
don't like
couldn't.
that. And it depends on what they sign him to. If he's willing to sign
I
a
think it's going to be a 5x3 deal, 5 million for 3 years.
yeah, they can't be
That's not
more
bad.
than three. Which yeah, it's not too bad. But would he because I get you kind of want him to be the leader for Kyrou and Thomas just because O'Reilly has been here for a long time. He's been just in the NHL for a long time and he knows what it takes to lead. And obviously Thomas and Kyrou are going to be the new faces of this team for the next almost decade.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't think it's a bad move, but I I really it just hurts because Tarasenko's been here for so long. And it just to see him go, it does suck.
Yep.
But it
And
was the right move.
you know what I did right after I saw that the final trade was done and everything?
Hmm.
I bought tickets for April 6th where the Rangers go against the Blues in Enterprise. And
Oh
thank you,
boy.
Game Time, because they messed up something and gave me even better seats.
Really?
Yeah, I paid like
Where are you sitting?
paid $125 for row K in the upper bowl,
Mm-hmm.
and they just messaged me saying, "Hey, we messed up on something. I don't know what happened, but here's row B on upper bowl, so I only have to deal with one set of heads, and then I see the ice."
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean that kind of pretty much concludes everything. So again, if you were this episode was not expected, but this does not interrupt anything for this weekend. We're still planning on doing an episode this weekend, and that's going to be going over the Cardinals rotation for this
Yeah.
next year. So, and we might talk about the Super Bowl a little then, but
I want to give one last take with this too, just as the final thing to wrap it all up. And this is for people who want to be the over optimistic fan with it all. Think of it this way. Imagine, let's say everyone gets healthy again. And Sammy Blaze is the missing link for whatever reason. Not saying that he gets a bunch of goals.
It's not gonna happen.
No, just hear me out on this. Not
It's
saying
not
that he
gonna
gets a
happen.
bunch of goals, but just that he becomes that chemistry piece that O'Reilly really needs. And then they start winning. The team is
Didn't that be bad? That'd be bad.
Listen to me. They're not that far out of playoffs still, too, because the
That would be
Western Division
bad.
is so
That would be bad.
terrible.
We want Connor Bedard.
And
We
what's
want
to
Bedard.
stop the Blues from then taking
Take for Bedard.
What's to stop the two first round draft picks to then turn into another star player to come in with term? And then you have something to build off the future, and then you might salvage this season too. I'd be okay with that because I still have faith in Neighbors, Bolduc, and Alexandrov. There's so many prospects that are coming up that are being slept on.
So one more thing before we move, since this is since probably Rangers fans might pop on this video just because they see it, they're looking up Tarasenko crap today because they just got the trade. So as someone who's watched Tarasenko for the last almost 10 years, what can you say about him and what they have to look forward to for these next few months on their playoff run with him?
He is the perfect piece that you needed for your top six to upgrade it, because he's best friends with Artemi Panarin. Like, that was a big deal with it too, that he wanted, and he was the one team that was on their no trade list that they wanted to make this happen with. He is a point per game player. I just hope you have the cap space to re-sign him, because I know that he would want to stay in New York. However, you guys have to deal with what you're going to do with Lafreniere, Kako, Keandre Miller, and there's another player too whose name I forget or I can't pronounce, but you got to figure out what to do with those players too before you pay Tarasenko. Now, would Tarasenko take the pay cut to stay there? Maybe, because I don't know what the state tax is for New York and how they pay out those things, but he's a great player. And if you want playoff performance, you're going to get that from him. I mean, look at this season too. He had 2 to 3 last minute goals. And
just watch his 2019 highlights for that playoff run. I mean, I watched some of that. Man, it was just he just has so much energy, and he'll definitely be missed here just because. I mean, he's been the face of this team for a while, and he went through some bad years with the Blues as the team overall, and he's always been like the star with that. And then just to have him finally come around in 2019 and just amount to the cup was something that he'll always be remembered here for that.
And shout out to long tenure Blue, the longest tenure Blue now, Robert Bertuzzo. He was traded we traded Ian Cole and Maxime Lafayette for Robert Bertuzzo and Marcel Gotch.
Yeah.
And Bertuzzo's still here, baby.
All right. So that kind of wraps it up. So again, we will be here this weekend talking about the Cardinals rotation. And that's just pretty much our reactions for the Tarasenko trade. So feel free to let us know in the comments how you feel about the whole thing and if you think Sean's wrong about Parayko and that he's a bust. So, but anyway, we'll catch you guys later.